Hello and welcome to my end of the year tier list for conventions that I did this year. If you don't know me, I am Elise and I'm the artist behind Wonderful Washu, and welcome to my tier list. So first we're gonna go over the tiers. The first one is absolute banger. Second one is not bad. Third one is okay for a local show. Fourth one is meh. And the fifth one is questioning my life choices. To start off, I'd like to give an honorable mention to Midwest Winter Festival, which was hosted by Doki Dokan. And this was in 2003 in December 29th through 31st. So it was like at the very end of the year. And at the end, they were going to have a party for the new year, but I didn't stay for that because obviously I was tired. And that is in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So this one was interesting because it's the first time they've ever had it. And they had it at the Radisson, which was apparently expensive to stay at. So I just chose to drive back and forth from where I live because I lived like an hour and a half away. So it was interesting. I feel like this was a very slow convention and we got put at the end of a row. So we were like at the very back corner of the room that the vendors were in. And also I didn't have a neighbor on either side of me. So there was just two empty tables next to me and in the corner, and it really prevented people from, walking towards my booth. I would see people actively head towards my booth and then make a turn and then go in the other direction. I was like, oh my God, this sucks. So we endured that for Friday. And then the next day I asked if I could move. And they're like, oh no, someone might show up, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, okay. And then I talked to other people and they're like, you should ask again. So I went back and asked again and they let us move for Sunday. I don't know how well that would have helped us anyway if I had moved earlier, but we wanted to wait until Sunday so I had time to pick up everything and just move it over. It's funny because the person next to us, next to the empty table, also had an empty table next to him. So we moved there, so there wasn't just like a empty table artist. It's weird. People just didn't want to show up to this con. And even though there was a lack of people at this con, I did make a lot of new friends because, I'm normally not super outgoing and talkative to other people, but it was very boring there and I needed to go out and talk to people because I had nothing else to do. So I went out and I made friends. And that's basically all I did. I didn't even reach my average at this con. It was just very dead all weekend. And would I go back? I don't know. Another note is just how interesting the food options were. They didn't allow outside food, but they had a restaurant and the food was pretty good. But one day I ordered nachos and I was like, oh yeah, nachos. It's like $12, seems great for nachos. No, I don't know why they don't put this on the menu or warn anybody about how many nachos they give you. This looked like a pizza box. It's so big. Like, who's eating all these nachos? And they don't even ask, oh, is this for a party? No, they just give you the box. And I'm just panicking because I'm like, I'm not eating all this. So I got a bunch of extra plates and everything, and I was able to share with everybody else. And actually some other artists is like, oh yeah, we were here last time and we got the nachos and it happened to us. I was like, they should change the menu and warn people because this is just too much food. But yeah, for the first category, honorable mention, I'm gonna put this into meh because it was just okay. It was cold, it was empty, and nothing much was going on. I might go back, but eh. So the first actual convention of 2024 was UICon, which is a convention for the University of Illinois in Urbana, Illinois. And this was March 2nd through March 3rd. So it was a 2-day con, and it was their first time ever hosting this con. And I actually got invited via Etsy. So one of the organizers messaged me personally on Etsy and asked if I wanted to vend there. I'm just like, oh, okay. I don't know. I was just I wouldn't say desperate for conventions or events, but I was kind of curious to see how it would go. Plus, the event was completely free to vend at, so it didn't cost anything to go to the event. It didn't cost anything to vend there. And the hotel was actually hosted in the college. They have a hotel or the Union building, literally a floor above or a couple floors above where the convention was actually being held. So it was pretty easy to walk to and from the room while we were doing setup. This was the first convention of the year, so I had a new setup. Obviously, I was trying to figure it out at the con, which is a bad idea. You should test it out at home first. I don't think I did that, which is why it took me so long for us to like set up and then get out of there. After that, we got Jimmy John's, which took forever. I don't know, he didn't know where we were. I figured that it would be an easy place to find because of the college, and it was like a college town, so it was like we're at the Union Center and everything. It was bad because we got the sandwiches at probably like 1 a.m. 1 a.m. to get Jimmy John's sandwiches. I was so hungry. And it's so funny because we didn't even know about all the food that you could get within a walking distance. There's like an Asian district and there's so much great food. And we noticed other people like getting boba and other like rice bowls and beef bowls, and we're like, where did you get that stuff? And they just pointed us in this direction, and we ate that the whole weekend since. So if I were to go back, it would be mostly for the food, but also for the vibes, because the students were really cool. Like there were some cool students there. They bought a bunch and they also tipped well too. I did great at the show. Some other notes for this con. Apparently there's a notorious cosplayer that always has this sort of battleship around Illinois cons, and people know him pretty well because when I mention him, they're like, oh yeah, that guy. So he went around and he was playing, I guess, the theme song to whatever anime this battleship thing was from, and it was like very interesting because you can hear him throughout the whole convention. I mean, it was a little hard to hear customers at some points, but you know, we just got over it. And then also the room in the hotel came with a fridge, and we put our food in it, but then when we got back, the food was like not cold at all. We thought it was broken at first, but they found out that it was unplugged. So they plugged it back in and it froze all of our food. So that kind of sucked, but overall, I'm rating this show as not bad because I made my average, but I feel like if I actually paid for the table, it would have been just okay. You know, it was a really good show, but like I wasn't like making above average. I'm wondering if I go again, will I do a lot better because I'll have a lot more merch. They haven't really opened up Artist Alley right now, so I'm keeping an eye out for that. The next convention was PopCon Indie, and that was April 26th through the 28th. So this is in my hometown, so this is another one I didn't have to buy a hotel for because I just stayed with my parents. And for this convention, I was sharing a table with Angelica, aka Zombie Base, and she came to stay with my parents with me. So this convention was pretty big. I feel like if I had to guesstimate, there was probably like 400 vendors in there, and Artist Alley was like kind of in the middle row along all of them. Each Artist Alley section was like in a big circle, and they had gigantic gaps in between each table. So multiple times throughout the weekend, people would just like walk through the tables and they would just realize, oh, we shouldn't be walking through here because it's like a big empty area in between all the tables. And we were put near the back, so people who were looking for me on social media says, oh, I can't find you, blah, blah, blah. So tabling with Angelica was really interesting because I was actually learning a lot from her, and she was telling me about, you know, customer service, this and that, and she was also yelling at me how my prices were too low, so that helped me a bunch. And it was difficult to share a table because people thought that we were the same artist and they were trying to buy stuff from her at my window and vice versa. And then at the end when she left, everyone was like, oh, where'd she go? And then I don't know, I didn't really get a lot of sales after that, but it was pretty slow the whole weekend. I definitely didn't make my average. I don't really remember, I'm not looking at the numbers right now, but it was pretty much either at average or right underneath it. And also one extra note on this one is the weirdness that happened after Angelica left on the final day, because she had to leave early to catch a flight back up to Michigan. But while I was packing up, this dude who I've never seen the whole weekend came up to me and asked me, oh, do you want to be another host on my YouTube channel, podcast, whatever? I'm just like, oh no, I'm not really the best person to ask for being a host or whatever. You know, I don't want to be on camera. It's like, oh, you don't need to be a camera. You can just call in, or, you know, we can give you an avatar or anything. I was like, oh no, I'm probably not the best person. You should probably find somebody else. He's like, oh, well, can I get your number or anything so you can, like, in case you change your mind? I was like, oh, well, no, not really, but we can like, you can just tell me what your YouTube is and I'll check it out. And he's like, oh yeah, sure. And he's like, so where you from? And I said, I'm from northern Indiana. He's like, oh, what you doing up there? What are you doing out here? And I was like, oh, my boyfriend lives up there, so that's why I'm up there and everything. Like, straight up, he's just hitting on me. He tried to package it nice, saying that, oh, I need a co-host or anything. I've never talked to you before. Why would you need a co-host from some stranger that you just met? Some stranger, you don't know me, I don't know you. Why would I just want to jump on your YouTube channel? By the way, I did look at his YouTube channel. I took a quick peek and I'm just like, oh, I dodged a fucking bullet. Anyway, we're gonna put this convention in. Okay for a local show. As of right now, I do know that I will be going back, and I'm not expecting much. I have my own table this time. I'm not sharing, so maybe the sales will be a little better because it won't be split between us and everything. So we will see, and I'll try to actually do a vlog on that and not just group it into one video like I'm doing right now. The next event was a small one-day market in Granger, Indiana called Spring Market on Bittersweet. And this was hosted by a store called Treasureology. And the owner of the store is named Miss Meg, and she's a really great lady. She's real sweet. She has her daughters. One daughter? I don't know how many daughters she has, but she has a bunch of kids helping out with the events and everything. There were only 2 tables available on the inside, and most of the other vendors were on the outside with tents, but I didn't have a tent or anything, so I picked an inside table, and I believe the cost was only like $25 to vend there. It was like a one-day event from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., and I wasn't really expecting much, but I actually made a pretty good profit there. I feel like at any of these artisan market events, I'm like the only person selling any anime merch or any nerdy merch like that. So most of my customers were like older women, were like, oh, my daughter will love this, and oh, I gotta get this for my daughter. She loves these kind of things, or she loves this character or anything. So that was pretty cool. There was free coffee and free tea, and I had a little bit of the tea, which was pretty good. So that's why I bought some tea from the shop. It was interesting the way she had the setup. So most of everybody outside was on the side of the shop on like a grassy area, and then you would come up on the ramp in front of the store, and you would come into the store and go to the side door on the store into the area where me and another vendor were. So there is a door to the outside from the room that we were in, but she locked it so people would go in through the store and shop there first. But I'm pretty sure she was pretty good at telling people, oh yeah, we have more vendors in the back or something like that. So also she was having like a little terrarium DIY thing back there as well, so people were interested in doing that. They would also see that I was selling stuff next to it. And another cool thing is that she had like a feral cat living in there. It was kind of wandering around in and out of my table, which was kind of fun. The weather for that day was pretty unfortunate because it was very, very windy outside, and I felt bad for the vendors because it got a little too bad that everyone had to just start packing up early because the wind was basically just knocking stuff over and everything. So everyone kind of cleaned up a little early, and I feel like I was probably the last person to leave because I was by myself and I didn't have anybody to help me set up. Anyway, I rate this okay for a local show, and I would go back because it's a one-day show, so it doesn't take too much time out of my day. And I like to support other small businesses. I bought stuff from her shop. I bought stuff from vendors outside, although there was a bread vendor that I didn't get to see, which is disappointing, but I'll get them next time. Next up is Really Cool Comic-Con in Flint, Michigan. This was a 2-day con, August 3rd and August 4th. Flint is 3 to 4 hours away, so we drove, and there was a pretty bad accident on the way there, and I was trying to reroute the GPS to go around it because you can get off and go into whatever town it was to get back on the highway, but she took us to the exit that was directly going into the accident, and it was too late. I was already on it by the time I noticed that, oh no, there's too many cars lined up, we're not going to make it. And so we sat there for, I think, 30 to 45 minutes, and we were so late to set up. We only had 2 hours to set up. And I had a 10 by 10 booth, and there was a lot of planning I had to do, and I had everything. I brought an extra table. I had a backdrop I wanted to put up. This was the first time I ever did this setup, but I did practice it at home, so I knew an idea of how it was going to go, but it still took me forever. And then I also had to do some the next day, but they were cool about it. We had a time slot lot to set up and we missed it, but they still let us set up, so that was pretty cool. And at the end, they had free pizza for everybody, so that was also nice because we didn't have any plans for dinner, so we ate that for dinner. But there were like a ton of flies in there, which is really weird. If I had any complaints for this convention, it was the flies. They also had a hotel reserved for everyone. You got a discount at a hotel that was nearby, but we decided to go to a Hilton in the city of Flint. And it was like a little bit further away, but it was only like 10-minute drive, so we decided to go there instead. Because, I don't know, the star rating of the hotels, my boyfriend's like, oh no, let's go to the 4-star one or whatever. So that's what we chose. It was crazy because I didn't know that it would have that many one-way streets. So we went down the wrong way a few times, but it was kind of hard to tell because like they would just merge. It was like a 2-lane and it would merge into a 1-lane. And I don't remember seeing any signs for that, but I was getting stressed out because we were just like getting lost and like we didn't know how to get back to the hotel. Because we saw the hotel, but we didn't know where to park. Eventually we made it and we had to park in this really sketchy parking garage because when you came down the elevator, you had to go through the alley to get back to the hotel. And I'm just like, oh no. That was super scary. It was dark and everything. I was just like, and we had to take all our luggage too. That was crazy. So we decided, okay, we're just going to do valet from now on. We're just going to let them park the car and we're just going to wait for the car at the hotel. But the hotel was pretty nice. We got a nice room. I think it was kind of like a suite. It had a microwave and a fridge and a pretty nice bathroom. But the TV was weird because you couldn't actually watch TV. It was stuck on like a singular image. All right, we're trying to watch TV and this is all it's showing us no matter what channel we go to. We didn't know what to do about it, so we just watched YouTube. Day one, they had a security check at the con, which is pretty cool. So they checked everybody, all their bags and everything. We were supposed to wear these wristbands that came in the welcome packet at the table. And I didn't know we were supposed to wear the wristbands all weekend. I thought they were just for setup because they also gave us vendor badges. So I thought the vendor badges would be enough to get us in and out, but we had to also wear the wristbands. So we had previously just ripped those things off and they were in the trash in the hotel. And then she's like, oh, where's your wristbands? It's like, oh, we didn't know we had to wear those. And she let us in anyway, but we made sure to like go back and get the wristbands. But this show was like my best show ever. I was making so many sales and I really think having a booth helped out with that because I revamped my display. I really added more purple into it. Like I got purple containers, I got little purple shopping carts, I had the backdrop that was purple and cosplayers like to take photos in front of it. This was also the first time I ever had like a self-serve sticker setup, and I think that actually really helped a lot. So I plan to do that at every con. We also did a stamp rally at this con, and I think that also helped a lot with the sales. A lot of people were really excited about it because it was a free run stamp rally and the voice actor was here, so I had 2 free run prints. No, I had 1 large one and 3 small ones along with 3 small stickers. And because the voice actor was here, she actually came up and bought some prints and had me sign them, and then we took a picture. I was like, oh wow. She's like, oh yeah, everybody always comes up with this print and I wanted to get it. I was like, oh my god. But my most popular print was the dungeon meshy print with Laos, and it says I got that dog in me, and those sold out and I had to go get them reprinted at Walmart the next day, and we were able to get them before the con started, and that helped out because I definitely did sell more the next day, and that was great because I was like, oh, I was really proud of that design, so I'm glad that did pretty well. The one thing that I was upset that didn't sell well was the tote bags, because that was the first time displaying them and I had a bunch and I was like, oh, hopefully they sell. I sold one tote bag. Along with the Comic-Con, there was an EDM concert that happened right outside the hotel, and all of a sudden the town was bustling with people. Like when we were driving around earlier in the day, we saw no one. there was no one out there. But now all of the people showed up and they were just everywhere. They were blasting music. It wasn't bad because they all left at 10 p.m. So it didn't affect any sleep or anything, but I was jamming because I love EDM music. So I wanted to go out there, but I'm just like, I was just so tired, but I could see it from my window. So I watched a bunch while I was like going through my Square app and updating stuff. And then I'm just like, well, Daniel, you go. So he went down there and he checked it out and he got water and some other treats, freeze-dried candy that he found. Oh, and the water. Water was so hard to come by in Flint because obviously the water issue there. So the water at the hotel was expensive and it was also expensive at the convention. And we were just like thirsty, okay? So there was a guy down there selling $1 water and he was like, oh yeah, let me get some of that. And the next day when we went to go pick up our prints at Walmart, we made sure to get more water because we were just like, man, it really is hard to get water out here. And finally, at the intercom, we were like packing up and everything. And all of a sudden, I was sneezing a bunch. I assumed because of the dust everyone was kicking up from packing. But then my throat hurt so much. I'm just like, oh God. And you know what? It was COVID. I tested when I got home and it was just immediately positive. I'm just like, how? So fast. I got it so fast. And it sucked. I had that thing for a week. Worst week ever. But I'm going to put this con in absolute banger because it was my best con and I can't wait to go back. I hope I do just as well in 2025 than I did this year. Honestly, I hope all my cons go just as well. The next event is Universal Arts and Flea Market at Lane Lab. This is a really small event, like very small. I only really heard about it through friends, so I went to check it out because, anywhere to sell for free is fine. And the policy is that if you make over $50, then you give 20% to the venue for your rental costs. So it happened every second Sunday of the month, so I went October and November. And at first, when I went, I made like $30. And I was like, well, I shouldn't come back here or whatever. But at the time, I wasn't networking or socializing with anybody, mostly because I wasn't feeling too good. It wasn't COVID. I was just like cramping. But, I was just like, oh, I'm just going to sit here or whatever. I did buy a couple things. We bought bread. There was like a bread vendor and it was really good bread. I'm disappointed that they didn't show up the second time because I was going to rebuy from them. But the second time I went, I planned out that I was going to film more. I was going to talk to every vendor there. And I'm socially awkward. So what I did was I brought a bunch of buttons and stickers and just handed them out for free to all the vendors. And then they, in turn traded free stuff with me. And some of them came by and bought stuff. And it was really cool. And also, they had a cat there this time. It was very friendly. In fact, the girl sitting next to me actually went and picked up the cat and brought it over for me to pet. And the cat just said, oh, put me down. And it sat in my lap and fell asleep. I was like, oh, okay. So I'm just going to sit here for I don't know. I feel like it was 5 to 8, 10 minutes. I don't know. I wasn't counting, but it was just chilling in my lap. And I was like, cool. I love it here. It was fun. I met some vendors. And they basically say they don't make that much there either, but they just go for the vibes and just to network. And if you show up more, people know more about you, that you're local and everything. You just make relationships and just meet people who are also local. So I thought that was pretty cool. But I'm also going to put it in meh because even though the vibes were cool, it really isn't a place to make money. So if I go back, I'm not really prepared to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to make so much money here. No. The second time I went, I also made about $30. So it didn't change. Even though I changed up my display a little bit, I brought less. The first time I packed, I brought so much just to make a half size of what I usually sell. But then I scaled it back even more. It's one of those events where vendors are your biggest customers because that's the only people who are going to be there. I don't really think I sold to any outside people unless it was a friend of a vendor. That's the only people I think I sold to. The final event was the South Bend Artisan Market, and that was November 16th through 17th. So for this one, they had us, this was at the Century Center which is also the same place that RamenCon is held, but we weren't allowed to park in the parking lot next to the Century Center. We had to park across the street. When we set up, we were allowed to park in that parking lot. But the first day, we were supposed to park in the further back part, but we only saw like a 1 or 2 other cars over there, and one car had their window smashed into. And I feel like it was recent, like right after they parked, because there was still glass on the ground. And I'm not really sure what they still had in there, but I don't know if they knew about it, and we weren't sure what to do about it. But we definitely didn't park where they parked. We parked closer to where everyone else was parked, because that seemed so far out that someone was comfortable enough to break into someone's car. And I'm just like, why do they have us back here? But either way, this was like a very big artisan market, and they had like maybe over 150 vendors throughout the whole center, and there weren't enough customers, I would say. This was very slow. I was definitely super bored the whole time. I was like scrolling through Facebook, all this stuff, and I was just kind of like staring down every person who looked like they would be a little bit nerdy. Like maybe they would be interested in anime or cartoons or something. Like, come over here, please buy from me. But they would always like pass up or anything. I mean, some people did come by and they're like, oh yeah, I'll be back. Oh my God, I'll definitely come back. They didn't come back. That's just like the thing. People were like, oh yeah, I'll be back. I'm sure. For sure I'll be back. I'm definitely going to come back and get this and this and this. And then they just don't come back. There's 150 people around here. You're not going to remember. I also went around and did a little shopping myself. I got fudge. I got some crocheted animals from this cute young girl. She was selling, and she's so sweet. We follow each other on Instagram now. I also got a bunch of cookies because they let me have a free sample, and I'm just like, okay, I'll just buy cookies, whatever. Oh, I also did buy some like bootleg Hunter x Hunter figurines, and I'm just like, I looked them up online. I was like, yeah, these aren't official or anything, but they were cheap, so I bought them. The whole 2-day event, I only made just around $300, which is not good because the booth cost was $150. I feel like you should get a lot more if you're like there and there's that many people. But Daniel went around and he was talking to other vendors. People said that the spring market was better. So I will try again at the spring market, and we'll see how that one goes if I get in. But I will put this event in meh because I did all right, but not amazing or anything, and it's just like a kind of show. Like, I'm not like gunning for it. If I have something the same weekend, I'm not gonna feel bad about missing it. So that is the list. That is the whole tier list for this year of 2024. Or should I say last year? Because I know I'm going to post this in 2025 because I just did not have the ability to record during the holiday season. But here we are. We're still getting it done. And thank you for watching. Feel free to subscribe and like the video and follow me on social media because I will be trying to post more in 2025, trying to get my stuff together this year. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!